We need a president who cares about the people and loves the people.
He is somebody of such extraordinary grace and kindness and empathy. He will bring the exact kind of empathy that is so badly lacking in this White House.
I hope the American people, when we get to the White House, know that we feel their pain.
We've got to heal this country.
Well, Joe Biden was supposed to restore compassion and bring empathy to the White House. Well, here's that compassion for the American people. They look for this, right? Well, this weekend, he was asked about the devastating fires in Hawaii.
Mr. President, any comments on the rising death toll in Maui?
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
I got to get to dinner. Back to the beach. Imagine for a second that a Republican president, any Republican at all, said that. You think the media would let him get away with it? Not a chance. They were all upset when Trump remember he's throwing the paper towels? They got all upset about that. Now, as Biden sunned himself on the beach, GOP candidates were in Iowa meeting with voters at the state fair. Now, the crowds were big. I've been to the Iowa State Fair before. It's a lot of fun. And they were really big crowds for former President Trump. But is this giving us a sense of what the 2024 campaign season would actually look like? Joining us now, Victor Davis Hanson, senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, Monica Crowley, former assistant Treasury secretary in the Trump administration. Victor, I should say that right now, the Fulton County, Georgia grand jury is about to hand down, looks like, another Trump indictment. Total travesty. So Biden is going to hide while Trump is in court, apparently, the whole campaign, because this looks like it's the way it's going to play out.
Yeah, I think Biden has settled into a tripart strategy, Laura. On the one hand, he's going to be a virtual president, go to the beach, then he's going to go to Tahoe, I guess, next week, not comment. He's on the beach while a whole beach city has been wiped out, and he can't even make one remark about it. So he's just going to retire and be a construct and let the Obama, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren wing continue to run the country. And then he's going to stonewall all of these looming indictments. And then they're going to fixate on Donald Trump. And they think this is going to get us through the next 17 months. It may, but there's some problems with it. Some of these indictments are so ridiculous, in fact, the majority of them, that they're building a huge pushback. And Biden is declining, and we've been saying this for the last 2 years, but it's getting very egregious now. It's so obvious that I don't know if it's going to be sustainable for the next 17 months. And then finally, unlike the Trump impeachments or the Clinton impeachments or the potential Nixon impeachment, Joe Biden is facing charges that are in the Constitution of bribery. And if he did a quid pro quo for a foreign government when the family received money, and they can prove that, that's almost treasonous. So I'm not sure that he's going to be just protected because there's a Republican Senate. So this is going to be a very interesting 17-month. He's in a race against the truth, to tell you the truth.
Monica, Biden announced today that he's going to send a one-time payment of $700 to every household that's suffering now. Now, it's an interesting number, especially when you see it compared to this headline. U.S. inflation means families are spending $709 more per month than 2 years ago. Monica, so it really needs to give people $1,400, I guess. Maui families getting $700 each.
Yes, I mean, the American people are really suffering a very drastic cost of living crisis, and it's directly out of Joe Biden's hand and the hand of the Democrats, who, once they entered office in 2021, they began spending like drunken sailors and created this drastic inflationary environment, Laura. So here he is, he's going to give out checks once again. You know, this is mailbox money from the government, money that we do not have and cannot afford. At the same time, sending an additional $25 billion to Ukraine. While the people of the United States are suffering, whether it's the devastated community in Hawaii, whether it's the people of East Palestine, Ohio, whether it's the folks in the border towns, whether it's the people in collapsing cities across America, people suffering from the fentanyl crisis, people suffering from higher gas prices and skyrocketing inflation.
He doesn't care.
He does not care.
They don't care.
He sold himself in the last campaign, Laura, as Scranton Joe, as somebody who's going to champion the little guy, and instead he's only championed the big guy himself. And enriched and empowered himself throughout his political career and could not be bothered with taking care of the American people.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, he's cared about Wall Street, the big donors, Victor, who want him to pretend to be tough on China so they can get cover themselves. But in reality, of course, they're not tough on China. But a reporter today asked the press secretary about Biden's strange decision not to even speak about the Hawaii wildfires. Watch this, Victor.
Has the president given any advice that he should not speak about Hawaii at this point? He had an opportunity, he could have stopped by to see us when he arrived back.
Clearly, it is something that is deeply concerning to him when it comes to the wildfires that we have seen in Maui. But certainly, he's the president, right? You're going to hear from him.
This is so strange. Are they drafting a speech for him, Victor? He can't just say this is a horrifying event and we're here for you? Wow.
I mean, this is the media that criticized George W. Bush because he didn't have big enough waiters when he waited out in Katrina. And Joe Biden is the president of the United States. He should get off the beach. He should fly out to Maui. He should have C-17s coming in every hour with a big airlift and treat these people much like they are American citizens. And, you know, we treat people in different countries a lot better than we do Americans. And this is just shocking that he's going to go from, as I said, from one vacation to another and from one beach side to a lake side where people in Maui have no beach. They're destroyed. Their lives are destroyed. And he doesn't seem to care. And he's a virtual president, as I said, and at some point it's not going to be sustainable. Each day the media is struggling and frantically trying to construct and recalibrate a presidency that no longer doesn't exist anymore.
Well, really quickly, Monica, Zelensky snaps his fingers, and sometime soon after that, he'll get something, right? And the people of Maui are suffering, and the president's shirtless on the beach. His beach. It is a wild thing to care so much about Ukraine and not really seem to care much about the American people across the board.
Well, Joe Biden and his family have enriched themselves via Ukraine and that corrupt regime and corrupt players in Ukraine to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. So, of course, he's prioritizing Ukraine over the American people. But this is what you get with America last. President Trump put America first. Joe Biden has America and America's interests and the American people last.
Yeah, and that's the most compassionate thing you can do, care about the American middle class especially, and Donald Trump did that. Victor, Monica, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.